Hello 啊，大家好啊，歡迎嚟到美港天下。今日又係我 Dennis 咧，想同大家最後一次衝刺啊！如果仲未有人知道點解要投阿 Trump 嘅話咧，我就喺呢一集咧再總結晒所有我過去嘅影片啦。我啱先發現到，原來我過去響Asia Sky Media USA 嗰度有啲影片咧，竟然咧無緣無故俾佢哋 unlist 咗啊！unlist 咗係咩意思咧？unlist 咗就係本來咧啲影片咧就放 public 嘅，即係公開嘅俾人哋睇，但係咧就無緣無故，竟然我都唔知有啲影片咧就變咗 unlist 嚇。咁呢樣嘢係咪叫做匪夷所思咧？係嘛？所以今日咧就都成6個台一齊啦，6個台一齊同時播出啦，就希望喺即係今日已經4號，我哋洛杉磯時間而家7點鐘，即係而家仲有1個鐘就嗰啲投票站就關門啦，8點鐘閂門。咁咧就聽日仲有一日，就希望如果可以嘅話就希望大家可以去投票啦。好嘢，多謝你啊，阿 D 小姐，希望你等我陣咁啊 make sure 我 microphone 多謝啊 D 小姐留言。OK， 咁咧就而家開始將我過去其實搜集咗我自己剪輯咗好多唔同嘅影片啦，就係關於阿 Trump 嘅。咁嗱，有啲debunk 嗰陣時拜登賀錦麗總之民主黨嗰邊啲謊言啦。咁今日咧就一路碌噶啦，咁睇下碌到幾耐啦。咁亦都可能好多朋友完全未見過啊！我相信好多人第一條片呢個係好多人未睇過啊！相信就俾大家睇下。
Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
Businessman Donald Trump.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio.
Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush.
And Ohio Governor John Kasich.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Republican candidates.
And Dr. Ben Carson, please come out on the stage. He's standing there as well. Dr. Carson.
And Donald Trump.
Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day.
頭先剛剛嗰條片翻轉頭少少啦。剛剛呢條片咧就係2016年啦，嗰個 debate 嘅，咁啊總統 debate， 好多人都冇睇，即係好多人冇懷疑呢樣嘢，就係見到嗰陣時咧，好多人都識阿 Trump， 其實 Ben Carson 都好出名嘅啦。Ben Carson 係一個腦部手術醫生嚟嘅，佢曾經成功咧就將個連體嬰即係分開成功。世界第一宗腦部連體。咁佢咧就阿 Trump 出嚟 ，Ben Carson， 佢哋叫 Ben， 即係嗰啲主持人喺度叫人名嗰陣時咧，咁咧一路都冇叫到 Ben Carson。咁本來有可能喺個 list 上邊咧係 Ben Carson 先嘅，咁因為佢主持人冇叫到 Ben Carson， 佢叫咗阿 Trump， 咁竟然阿 Trump 咧到叫到阿 Trump 個名嗰陣時咧，竟然又唔出去，佢等埋先， 你可想而知呢個行動啊，就已經可以話俾你知阿 Trump 係一個乜嘢嘅人嚟嘅啊！你諗下嗰陣時2016年喎啊，好緊張嘅都個形勢，咁多個候選人，咁多個共和黨候選人喎，仲要係去爭呢個喺初選期間爭呢個位，咁啊個個梗係撲到出去俾即係叫做俾啲camera 影下先啦，係咪先？咁但係阿 Trump 咧就冇，阿 Trump 寧願喺度陪呢個 Ben Carson。呢一種嘅行為根本就唔係政客嘅行為，可以咁講但係好可惜啊，主流傳媒咧就唔會播俾人睇呢啲嘢嘅咁就只會咧一路抹黑佢，話佢只係會顧自己好自私嘅一個人嚟嘅唔會理人嘅一個人嚟嘅。如果係一個唔會兼顧人哋感受嘅人咧，絕對唔可能做呢樣嘢，做出呢個動作咁之後而家其實咧後邊咧就係講拜登嗰啲講大話嘢咧，就因為而家唔係拜登啊嘛，所以就可以唔使睇佢。咁之前咧我好多片睇下我啲咧，你如果你喺下邊呢度睇到咧，睇下係唔係嚟到俾大家睇成呢個1年前我放嘅，得18個 view 啫咁問題原來咧好多片咧我俾佢哋unlist 咗，所以咧同埋我呢個 channel 咧又係佢唔願意同我推嘅，即係你見好多會好多嗰個 algorithm 佢唔會幫我推。咁仲有啦你睇跟住呢個係呢個咧
You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know, everyday prices are too high. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. The bills add up. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes, prescription medication, the cost of food. A loaf of bread costs 50% more. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's a serious housing shortage. The price of housing has gone up. It's too difficult to build, and it's driving prices up. It is out of reach. The size of down payments have gone up as well. Costs are still too high. There's not much left at the end of the month, and prices are still too high. That is called Bidenomics. That is called Bidenomics, and we are very proud of Bidenomics. That Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Mr. Trump is nearly 50 points ahead of all of you in the national polls. 29 points ahead in Iowa.
好明顯呢啲又係想話俾人知阿 Trump 係有幾衰有幾自私嘅一個人啦。咁跟住咧，其實好多做咗，如果你睇170條片咁咧有一個 interview 又好精彩啦。咁我睇下係咪呢個先。
Do we want to give her a promotion? I think the answer has to be no, John.
My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. Some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are.
The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president. My values have not changed. Some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are.
John, what I saw was a lot of slogans. I think the American people are smart, and Kamala Harris talks to them like they're children. She repeats these ridiculous platitudes where if you actually think about what she said, you realize that it doesn't make any sense. She talks a lot about her plans, but then her plans, when you analyze the substance, don't make any sense. And more importantly, John, the American people don't get fed on plans. She has been the vice president for 3.5 years. What she can't do, refuses to do, and has no ability to do is to say, I accomplished lower prices because she didn't, or I accomplished lower housing prices because she didn't, or I secured the southern border because she didn't do that. She has failed as vice president, and the fundamental question is, do we want to give her a promotion? I think the answer has to be no, John.
呢個就係總統第一次debate 啦之後個副總候選人咧就出嚟講呢個。好精警啦，我覺得講得好明顯、好清楚究竟咩一回事咁大家繼續，我就繼續咧就碌翻前啦，咁咧就其實好多碌翻前俾大家睇。
He will sign a national abortion ban.
It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban.
Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion monitor.
What she says is an absolute lie.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
連嗰陣時我哋喺度批評呢啲 moderator 咧，就喺度講大話，即係去幫賀錦麗辯護啊！咁陣間你會睇到個真相。
Nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion.
The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mothers.
Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy. We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Let's remember Charlottesville. There were fine people on each side.
Very fine people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away.
就佢一路都係話 Trump 係 racist， 佢哋全部咧都係叫做斷章取義，係啊，bunch of BS 係啊，阿 Cyrus 你好，咁佢哋一路咧係抽一啲即係斷章取義啦，我哋叫做斷章取義，將一啲阿 Trump 講嘅嘢就去扭曲。
An assault weapons ban and universal background checks and red flag laws.
賀錦麗話唔會攞走你啲槍嘅，但係之前咧，佢每次講關於槍，佢都係會攞走市民啲槍咁呢樣嘢就仲有好多。咁一路啦，咁呢個咧就係我今時今日嘅學校，佢哋嗰啲壁報板就係黏晒呢啲嘢喺上面嘅climate change 呢個 LGBTQ 你可想而知呢啲高中high school hallway 喺 high school hallway 見到嘅，喺呢啲高中上入邊就係喺度輸送緊呢啲咁嘅資訊。你話LGBTQ 你 有幾多，即係佢有幾多個細路啊，真係會關心呢啲嘢啊？但係佢就會話，如果你唔關心咧，如果你唔關心，你就係逼嘅啊。
The U.S. Labor Department has just significantly
呢個咧就係講 Labor Department 嗰啲數據問題啦。咁樣碌法
When we win this November, we will end the Kamala Harris border nightmare once and for all. We'll get it back very strong. We will also end the inflation, a bad economy, and we will be respected very shortly all over the world again as we were by other countries. The choice is simple. Kamala's mass amnesty of criminals or President Trump's mass deportation of criminals. I think that's pretty easy. In addition to all of the other things, there are many other things that are equally as bad but not as obvious. With your vote, we will seal the border, stop the invasion, and launch the largest deportation effort in American history. We will impose tough new sentences on illegal alien criminals. These include a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence for anyone guilty of human smuggling, a guaranteed life sentence for anyone guilty of child trafficking, and
the U.S. Labor Department has just significant. The U.S. Labor Department.
when we win
on this case, there's no easy way.
呢個就係當我哋話要將嗰啲 criminal 去講出境嗰陣時咧，由左邊新聞啊一面倒就走去話我哋係 racist。你睇下呢位媽媽咧，就係佢個女就係俾啲非法移民殺死咗嘅。我講緊係非法移民，就唔係合法移民佢哋就會去扭曲就話我哋針對一啲合法移民。大佬，我哋全部都係合法移民過嚟嘅呢班非法移民喺走入嚟OK， 咁咧佢個女咧就俾殺咗。咁你
to tell you this, but we found your daughter's body, and if they find the body, you know that she's dead, but they wouldn't say we found Rachel, she's alive, and so they found my daughter's body, and when they found it, it just recently has come out that she was brutally beaten, raped, and then stuffed into a drain pipe. We're 18,000 miles, 1,800 miles from the border. And because of this open border, we've had not just my daughter, but we've actually had two in the same county that we're from, where illegal immigrants have come in and have caused rape and murder.
好清楚講啲 illegal 導致我哋社區非常之唔安全而我哋嘅訴求就只係想個社區可以安全啫，而佢哋睇下呢個又係另外一個例子如果聽呢個得10個 view 呢個 video，OK？你睇，所以呢個就係證據嚟㗎啦。證據 YouTube 點樣去 shadow ban， 而好多人，所以好需要大家去分享去撳真係走去撳去 share 條片因為咧下邊見到嘛 unless 我呢啲整咗出嚟梗係 list 㗎啦，佢咪整咗佢將我啲片就 unlist 咗佢，所以咧就冇人睇嘅，冇人知。 呢啲就冇人知啊，冇人即係都冇人知道有呢啲事情啊。淨係我點解堅持喺 YouTube 嗰度播呢啲，就係因為想多啲中間嘅選民可以去睇下呢啲資訊，而 YouTube 咧係會經常做呢啲咁嘅嘢，但係都冇辦法啦。只有我哋只可以堅持喺呢個平台度去推嘅，因為咧中間選民佢哋唔會去花時間去走去揾，除非佢真係發覺，咦，好唔對路喎，佢想去揾先。如果唔係，好難俾到一啲 incentive 佢哋去做呢樣嘢。而 YouTube 就係咁邪惡啊
！You reiterated and have created.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for.
咁翻嚟呢度先，呢個咧
You
真係。
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining.
呢個呢個嘢
On this case,
呢個
there's no easy way to tell you this.
You reiterated and have.
呢個就係咧，佢哋喺度一路講 Project 2025咧，同阿 Trump 有關嘅。咁呢個咧係其中一位成員去寫呢個 Project 2025啊。
Created a boogeyman that just isn't there. I did author the EPA chapter on Project 2025, but in the course of that, I did not work with President Trump, with any of the people who work for him directly or his campaign. And it is very misleading to suggest that there's any coordination there because I can personally tell you it did not happen. And I am not vying for a position in the next administration. I've actually left DC and I've moved to a small town in Mississippi where I interact every day with people who live outside this bubble of gaslighting and misleading. And they actually are dealing with the consequences caused by policy decisions of this administration that isn't defined by progress, but defined by creating unnecessary hardship. I understand why it's hard to think about the political realm prior.
On this case, there's no.
You reiterated and have created a boogeyman that just isn't there. I did author the EPA chapter on Project 2025.
呢個啦，
Zelensky was involved in the
呢個其實係非常出名嘅一個嗰啲都算係 KOL 啦。咁佢自己有個 show， 佢都去訪問好多唔同嘅人嘅。咁佢訪問好多唔同嘅人，佢呢一次嘢咧訪問阿 Trump 呢次咧就即係每次訪問阿 Trump 呢啲咧都可以過百萬噶啦。咁佢呢個就係喺好長成個幾鐘啊，差唔多2個鐘啊。咁我就抽一段仔就放喺呢度俾大家去睇，究竟阿 Trump 係一個點樣嘅？我其實好多嘢都係好想做出嚟咧，佢好多嘢都係想剪接出咗嚟俾大家睇。阿 Trump 同主流傳媒所傳嗰個阿 Trump 係兩回事嚟嘅啊。
Impeachment hoax number one. There was a hoax, a couple of hoaxes, which I won both of them. But he was very honorable. I made a very innocent phone call to him to congratulate him on his victory. One of the people that worked for me, not the brightest one, kept asking me to call Zelensky. Call Zelensky. Oh, please call him and congratulate him, because they wanted to do an oil deal or something. I said, call him, and for the United States. And call him and congratulate him. Kept asking me. Yes, finally I called him. And they took that call, which was a congratulatory call, and they made it into an impeachment, which, and I will say I got great support from the Republicans. The Republicans were in Congress. I think I got 196 out of 196 votes. And when did you ever hear that about the Republicans, right? I had great support. Jim Jordan and all these guys that were great. But, and in the Senate, I had great support too. So it was wiped out easily. But I got to know Zelensky then because they asked him at a news conference or something, did President Trump say anything that was threatening to you or bad? This was the reason you got impeached. Can you believe this? And he said, not at all. He was a gentleman. He called me to congratulate me. He said it was a very normal call. Now, he could have grandstanded. I respect him for what he did. He could have said, oh, yeah, I felt very threatened and all that. Just the opposite. He said nothing. He did nothing wrong. And that sort of ended it all. But he was very honorable. I know other people might have done something that could have been different. Now, it also changed because, by luck, the phone call was taped, and it was a perfect call. And they had already started the impeachment process. And when crazy Nancy Pelosi saw the phone call, which was two great stenographers, military stenographers, every word was perfect, right? Very professional. Every word was exactly my conversation is. It was perfect. Congratulations. I actually said, if you find any corruption in your country, please report it to the Attorney General of the United States, which they have to do. You know, we had an agreement with them because Ukraine has been traditionally a very corrupt country. I said, if you find any corruption, please report it to the Attorney General. And what's better than that? And basically, I congratulated him on his victory. But when he went, and by the way, when they saw that the call was essentially recorded, they died. Mm-hmm. They said, how can Nancy Pelosi looked at this idiot Schiff and said, how can you get us to do this? You know, Shifty Schiff is the one that sort of led the charge. He made up all sorts of things. You know, many of them made up statements about the call, and it turned out to be.
所以咧，我哋加州咧有嗰個選舉我哋有Adam Schiff 同埋 Steve Garvey 咯，所以我哋唔可以俾 Adam Schiff 贏，我哋唔容，因為佢做好多壞事啊，即係用佢嘅權力嚟將一啲假嘅消息去傳出去啦，而且佢亦都係將所有我講緊 Adam Schiff 啦，佢將所有嘅資訊封閉，唔俾我哋主流傳媒嗰陣時Twitter 啦Hunter Biden 個 laptop 又唔俾我哋公佈啦，咁好多嘢做咗好多衰嘢，咁 Adam Schiff 係一個罪魁禍首啊，所以咧一定要投 Steve Garvey。Steve Garvey 你喺邊個 section 揾到咧？就係 US Senate 嗰個 section 咯。有冇本書喺度？我用個 sample ballot 喺度。Steve Garvey 啦，喺第一、第二都好去到好後嘅，喺 sample ballot 嗰度咧就去到好後咁咧就睇下可唔可以 show 到出嚟，睇下個 camera show 唔 show 到出嚟俾大家睇。睇下先，睇唔睇到？睇唔到，可能都睇唔到啦，太細，一埋啲佢又唔影嘅呢啲，咁樣。Anyway， 嗰個叫做 Adam Schiff 就係壞人嚟嘅 ，Steve Garvey 咧就係好人嚟嘅。呢個選舉咧有分兩 part 嘅，你去到撳機嗰陣時咧，佢都話俾你知，呢個係有兩 part 嘅。咁嗰個咧就係 US Senate。US Senate 係如果你用中文嘅話咧，就會叫做參議院係叫做參議院。咁咧佢會有兩 part， 即係兩 part 啦。咁總之有兩 part， 呢個咧你就有個叫 Adam Schiff 就 bad guy Adam， 如果你記住啦，食蘋果個 Adam 啦嗰個 Adam 就係壞人嚟嘅。Steve Garvey 就係打棒球嘅 Steve。我哋有個笑話噶嘛，叫做我哋有個笑話講啲同性婚姻咧，我哋係 Adam and Eve 啊嘛，跟住後尾咧咁而家好多人攞嚟講笑話，就唔係叫 Adam and Eve 叫 Adam and Steve 啊嘛，咁而家今次呢個選舉咧就真係 Adam and Steve 啊，咁呢個 Adam and Steve 咁就一定要揀 Steve 就唔好揀 Adam 啦 咁希望大家記住，好重要，好重要。繼續。
Totally wrong, because when they saw the taped call, the statements were a total fraud. But because they're in that building, you're not allowed to sue them for fraud.
因為佢係國會議員啊，係國會，所以咧佢哋有嗰個叫做即係講錯嘢係可以係有權講錯嘢免責啊，係啊，叫做免責嘅。咁佢哋咧好奇怪啦，佢哋又想佢哋可以講錯嘢喎，但係你阿 Trump 咧就唔得喎，想將阿 Trump 講嘅嘢全部咧執埋咧，就去搞阿 Trump。佢呢種雙重標準咧，係對我哋法治咧係極之危險嘅所以我哋一定眯埋眼投共和黨先，投晒共和黨，尤其是加州所有嘅咧，全部投晒共和黨等佢哋咧有翻個 balance， 唔好肆無忌憚，橫行霸道。
Anyway, and I tell you, Zelensky was he was 100% good.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News President.
啲掣咁鬼反應好慢嗰個啦呢下一條片咧就係講嗰個藥佢哋一路都話咧係民主黨將啲prescription drug 減價嘅
Stuff. Donald Trump has a record. And actually, when Donald Trump, even though Kamala Harris likes to take credit for this, it was Donald Trump who got the $35 insulin that made insulin affordable for American consumers.
呢個係舊新聞啦，2021年咧都 fact check 咗噶啦，已經 OK。但係問題就係佢哋咧就博一啲人咧冇睇到嗰陣時嗰個新聞冇睇到呢段新聞，就唔知道呢段 fact check， 咁咧就一路仲喺度講佢哋點樣將嗰啲prescription drug 減價。
Access to affordable medication. Thank you all. So today I'm taking a bold and historic, very dramatic action to reduce the price of prescription drugs for American patients and American seniors. Previous administrations did nothing, absolutely nothing. As drug lobbyists, special interests, and foreign countries fairly ripped off our citizens. Under the last administration alone, drug prices rose a staggering 55%. Thanks to my administration's aggressive action since taking office, we have successfully lowered drug prices for the first time in 51 years. But this reduction is still not close to what I want, what I expect. And I'm looking for help for our great seniors, especially in particular, and that's what we're doing today. You'll hear something which will be very shocking. So we're doing things that nobody thought could be done. And it's going to have an incredible impact. Unfortunately, we've been waiting for Congress to take action for many decades to reduce drug prices for more than just a small handful of people, but even the small handful of people never got price reductions, and I'm unwilling to wait any longer. Therefore, today I'm signing 4 sweeping executive orders that will lead to massive reduction in drug costs. Massive.
當時 Trump sign咗4個 executive order 就係關於呢個 drug reduction 嘅啊。咁咧仲有啦，就係有一啲咧係啲影片咧係關於啲理論嘅，咁我又唔播啦。咁呢個又係 Untold Story 啦。
That from this day forward, myself, Fred Trump, out of my own pocket, is going to pay for your 3 children's tuition because I don't want the kids have to go back into the public school system. And the tuition in 1974 was $2,500 per child, $7,500, which is about $80,000, $100,000 in today's money. And who would do that except the President Trump's father? The fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, and they give the Trump family grief. The Trump family is a wonderful family, the entire family.
He's a fascist. For decades, this has been...
啲反應好慢。OK， 咁頭先咧就係嗰個呢個頭先個佢。
That from this day forward.
This is a national movement.
玩嘢玩嘢。
That from this day forward, myself.
佢細個嗰陣時，佢阿爸死咗，咁咧 Fred Trump 就係阿 Trump 個老豆 ，Donald Trump 個老豆就叫 Fred Trump。Fred Trump 知道呢件事，就咧幫佢哋擔咗嗰個學費，幫佢哋交咗學費，以後佢哋讀到就唔使去私立學校。而俾佢哋可以去到繼續喺私立學校，唔使去公立學校讀書，所以佢就話佢呢個就係一個人親身嘅見證，去經歷。 hello，真係有冇搏到 ？hello，喂，哇，真係好神奇啊！即係突然之間會斷嘅，會佢可以嚇。咁而家繼續啦，希望大家繼續嚟留言。唔該，你去第二個 account 度留言啦。我咁樣幫唔到嘅，同一個account 咁樣留言咧，佢幫唔到去推啊。咁咧就睇下呢個係咩，我都唔記得咗，呢個太耐啊。
Once the cervix has been stretched open, the suction tube is placed.
呢個好恐怖啊！呢個就係咧展示一下俾人哋睇啊！嗰個墮胎個程序係幾咁核突嘅嚇。
Inside. The suction machine is turned on, and pale yellow amniotic fluid surrounding the baby is suctioned out through the catheters. The baby's bones and skull are too strong to be torn apart by suction alone. This is a Sofer clamp. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. The abortionist uses this clamp to grasp an arm or leg. Once he has a firm grip, the abortionist pulls hard in order to tear the limb from the baby's body. One by one, the rest of the limbs are removed, along with the intestines, the spine, and the heart and lungs. Usually the most difficult part of the procedure is extracting the baby's head, which is about the size of a large plum at 20 weeks. The head is grasped and crushed. The abortionist knows he has crushed the skull when a white substance comes out of the cervix. This was the baby's brains. The abortionist then removes skull pieces. He removes the placenta and any leftover parts of the baby with a curette, scraping the lining of the uterus for any remaining tissue. Once all the parts have been accounted for, the abortion is complete.
He was supposed to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. He was supposed to fight for Willie.
This is a national movement.
跟住咧，我哋又睇下咧點樣紐約嗰個 Attorney General 咧點樣去係一個咩人？成個去做 Attorney General 一個目的就係要想搞死阿 Trump。
He's called me venomous. We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City. He's called me disgraceful. Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat.
佢一路都係一個 activist， 一路都係針對 Trump 嘅。咁一個針對即係一個喺一個針對阿 Trump 嘅人嚟講，佢點可能佢點可能係中立咧？點可能係好似呢個蒙住眼嘅？
He's called me radical. Listen, we know he's crazy. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. We know he's out of control. We know he's losing it. We know his days are numbered and we will come together. He's called me a racist. We've got to stand up to an administration which is too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Too male, too pale, and too stale. Thank you.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
跟住咧係呢個要呢個個個人都話阿 Trump 係 criminal 啊嘛。
hush money, hush money. It's not hush.
佢哋一路都話 Trump 係 criminal， 咁究竟阿 Trump 嗰個34項罪係究竟點樣嚟嘅咧？
Money. It's called the non-disclosure agreement, and most of the people in this room have a non-disclosure agreement with their company. It's a disgrace. So it's not hush money. It's a non-disclosure agreement, totally legal, totally common. Everyone has it. And what happened is he signed a non-disclosure agreement with this person, I guess other people, but it's totally honest. You're allowed to make the payment. You don't have to make it. You can make it any way you want. It's a non-disclosure agreement. And he signed that. And there was nothing wrong with signing it. And this should have been a non-case. And everybody said it was a non-case, including Bragg. Bragg said, until I ran for office. And then they saw the polls. I was leading the Republicans. I was leading the Democrats. I was leading everybody. And all of a sudden, they brought it back. It's a very sad thing that's happening in our country. And it's a thing that I'm honored. In a way, I'm honored. It's not that it's pleasant. It's very bad for family. It's very bad for friends and businesses. But I'm honored to be involved in it because somebody has to do it. And I might as well keep going and be the one. But I'm very honored to be involved because we're fighting for our Constitution. The money that was paid legally. There was nothing illegal. In fact, the lawyer in creating the NDA, because at that time he was a fully accredited lawyer. He wasn't a fixer. I never thought of him as a fixer. The media called him a fixer, or the prosecutors called him a fixer. He was a lawyer, and he was fairly good. Later on, I didn't like what he did. I didn't like, for instance, I didn't like that when I became president, he went around and made deals with companies. When I heard that, he was gone. He was gone. And he had payments coming to him, and a lot of this involved things that are very simple. There was nothing wrong. This was standard stuff, all standard stuff. Everything involved was standard. There was no crime here. In fact, I just watched a couple of the reports. You watched Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Greg Jarrett. You look at all of these people, Mark Levin, all very talented people, great people, many more. And they don't know me, essentially. They don't know me. They're legal scholars and experts. But I look at them. I watched Curley this morning saying, there's no crime here. Everybody says there's no crime here, except for this DA that's got the city out of control with crime. It's absolutely out of control. So we have an NDA that was signed. We have legal expenses. And here's the thing on legal expenses. You have 100 where they say, they do a charge. I just recorded this out. Falsification of business records in the first degree. It sounds so bad. I said, wow. And even my own lawyers, I get very upset with them because they don't say what it is. They say, well, falsification of legal records is only a felony. Well, that's a lot. It's only they say a misdemeanor. But they try and bring it up to a felony if there's two crimes. They have all these different things. The other thing is they missed the statute of limitations by a lot because this was very old. They could have brought this 7 years ago instead of bringing it right in the middle of the election. So they missed the statute of limitations. They did everything. Now, let me give you the good news. The good news is last night, we just got a report this morning. In the history of politics, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, somebody will find that I'm wrong, maybe, but I don't think so. They raised with small money donors, meaning like $21, $42, $53, $38, a record $39 million in about a 10-hour period. We're going to walk down and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk.
呢個陣間先再啦，呢個又係 Gen 6嘅嗰條片啦。不過咧就再翻去睇，嗰個 get order 啦，呢個另外一個，唔係呢個。
And this can't be allowed to happen to other presidents. It should never be allowed to happen in the future. But this is far beyond me. This is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than my presidency.
呢個有解釋啊。
So you're not the only liberal Democrat who believes that.
裁決出咗嚟之後，好多民主黨唔中意 Trump 嘅人啊，都出嚟講嘢，因為呢個係影響咗成個法律程序。
I just wonder how many other folks out there who used to be against Trump are now in his favor.
I can tell you, I get calls, whispered calls from liberal Democrat friends of mine saying you're 100% right, but I won't say it publicly because I'm so thrilled that Trump got convicted, even though the conviction was outrageous. You get a lot of liberals who believe with Ellie Honig and me that this is an unjustified conviction. We're willing to say it, but they're not willing to say it. And there's dancing on the streets, and there are people who are just, I get these emails. They're so thrilled that we violated the Constitution in order to get Trump. I have people telling me getting Trump elected is worse than undoing the Constitution. That's how extreme some of these people are.
But in this case, he was providing the jury with a road to conviction, was he not?
Yes, in fact, the day before the conviction, I wrote a column saying this was a directed verdict by the judge, that the judge was directing the jury to convict. And by the way, he didn't have to. The jury would have convicted anyway. Once the jury was selected from New York voters, 85% of whom don't want to see Trump as their president, the die was cast. This case should have been tried in a different county. It should have been tried in Staten Island or Rockland County, where you get some chance of getting a fair jury. This was an unfair jury from the beginning. So the judge didn't even have to go as far as he went, but he did. And he essentially ruled in a way that made it impossible for the jury to acquit or even to hang.
Right.
啲反應好慢。OK， 跟住另外一個啦，睇下先，其實有兩個嘅，就睇下揾唔揾得翻，揾唔到就算啦。咁就係，即係搬到嗰34根本就係好明顯係屈嘅，咁屈完之後。佢而家喺選舉期間屈咗佢，啲人就話34佢係嗰啲叫做 felon 啊嘛，嗰啲罪犯啊咁樣，咁想根據嗰樣嘢就唔俾佢去參選做總統，啲卑鄙無恥嘅手段嚟嘅咁當然啦，我哋右邊嘅人，我哋比較醒目啊。一班醒目啲嘅人，即係有識接收資訊嘅人咧，就梗係知道個真相係屈噶啦。但係有一班咧懵成嘅咧，懵下嗰班咧，就真係唔知噶嘛。咁最慘咧，有啲懵下嗰啲咧，就唔肯承認自己係懵下噶嘛。所以有時就係難搞嘅。跟住咧，頭先呢個。OK， 先睇咗呢個，呢個咧就係響當日響Jan 6啦，1月6號佢哋喺度一路話Trump 喺度鼓勵啲人去衝擊國會山莊呢樣嘢，但係好明有晒記錄㗎，其實只係主流傳媒唔肯去播啊。如果相反轉過嚟，如果呢個係 拜登嘅話咧，主流傳媒咧就狂播㗎啦，所以係阿 Trump 嘅少少嘢，佢就會好放大，就或者講一句嘢，佢唔單止放大，淨扭曲添啦嚇。咁啊睇下阿 Trump 講咩嘢咯喎。
We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country.
As you can see,
又撳慢咗呢個係呢個就係好多人 join Democrats 啦咁仲有另外可能因為太亂啦啲 timeline， 睇下先佢點樣將佢整翻個順序咧。哇亂晒龍，都唔知係咪俾佢搞到我亂晒龍啊啲 timeline 咁所以國會山莊嗰度咧根本就係
Our country is going to hell. The critical job of institutions such as Heritage lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America, and that's coming. Government officials should need a court order to take down online content, not send information requests such as the FBI was sending to Twitter. Furthermore, when users of big online platforms have their content or accounts removed, throttled, shadow banned, or otherwise restricted, no matter what name they use, they should have the right to be informed that it's happening, the right to a specific explanation of the reason why, and the right to a timely appeal.
呢個就係駁翻呢個咧。
So let's talk a little bit about family, because we really feel at Moms for Liberty that family and parental rights are under attack in America. All of America got to meet your granddaughter Kai at the Republican National Convention. It's very obvious that you love being a father and a grandfather. So I'd love to know why you choose and continue to choose to work with your children in business and politics. And do you have any advice for people with working with your kids?
Well, I've always liked it. I don't know that I'll be doing it very much politically because I think it's been very unfair to them. Like Ivanka was she could have done anything. Great student, great, beautiful girl, beautiful everything. She was a perfect person, worked hard. She gave up. Do you remember the Ivanka line and all?
I loved those shoes. Please tell your daughter. She made great shoes.
She was making so much money with that thing. I was saying, what the hell is going on? It was so hot. And then I ran for politics. And the truth is, she wanted to come. She pretty much gave it up. It was really good. Great shoes, great everything. Very stylish. And a lot of people still talk about it. But she gave it up because she wanted to go, and she didn't want something like the United Nations Secretary. I wanted her to do that. I said, you would be a great ambassador to the United Nations Secretary. There'd be nobody to compete with her. I tell you, she may be my daughter, but nobody could have competed with her rat-tat-tat, the whole deal she's got. And she said, Daddy, I don't want to do that. I just want to help people get jobs. And she would go around, not a glamorous job, but she felt so good about it. She would go around to see Walmart, to see Exxon, to see all these big companies to hire people. And she had hired like millions of people during the course of her stay. it is nastier to run as a Republican. It is. Now, I'm the ultimate, they suffer from a thing called TDS. Do you know what that is? Yes. TDS, it's a horrible, horrible terminal disease. It destroys the mind. It destroys the mind before the body, but the body eventually goes. TDS is Trump derangement syndrome. They have it at levels. They can't even stand their life. They can't stand anything. And, part of the reason is I won an
所以阿 Trump 其實唔單止淨係人好啊，其實佢心地好好，而且咧佢好有幽默感。TDS 係我哋攞嚟咧一路笑啲左派啲嘢嚟嘅。佢今次咧喺個訪問嗰度咧都帶出嚟笑下班友咯，有乜所謂啫係嘛？
election which everybody said couldn't be won. Couldn't be won for a lot of reasons. Number one, he had never done it before. It's not that easy to be a politician. I mean, you have to have something. And we won.
We're a parental rights organization, and we saw Terry McAuliffe lose his bid for governor in Virginia. Remember that?
Yeah. I actually do remember that.
And he said famously that he didn't think that parents should be making decisions about what their children were learning in school. And we believe that every parent has a fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their children, right? And that includes their education. So what do you plan to do at the federal level to help us to protect parental rights and education freedom like school choice?
Okay, so I like to say that we're the party of common sense. I mean, we're conservative and all of that. Walls are common sense, right? All of the things we're talking about, no men and women sports, no gender operation. I mean, there's these operations, it's crazy. I don't know if you know, Europe has gone totally away from it now.
Yes, sir.
We're way behind them. They don't do it anymore. And this is just horrible. But who could even believe this is happening? So think of it. You have these parents that end up in fistfights at school meetings, and the parents mean well. They end up getting arrested, put in prison. I've seen things, especially Loudoun County, right? Loudoun County, it's a hotbed. Anybody from Loudoun? I have the property. I have the big, great golf course there right on the... I offered, you had the head of one of your groups that was very impressive to me. And I said, anytime you want to use my land along the Potomac River, right under the American flag, I mean, I have sort of an unlimited capacity there. It's a lot of acres, and it's miles along the Potomac. It's truly beautiful, but I'm for parental rights all the way. I don't even understand the concept of not being.
Thank you.
No, but when you see some of the things...
Neither do we.
When you see some of the things, that's another, why would somebody want to have an open war? When you see some of the things that they want people to do in these school boards, and they become like dictatorships, and the parents are screaming for the life of their child, a lot having to do with transgender, a lot having to do with a lot of other things. You've got to give the parents truly love the kids, okay? Some of these people on the boards, I think they don't like the kids very much, what they're doing. So you have to give the rights back to the parents. And I can't imagine it. Well, okay, this administration has been the opposite. This administration, it's like the FBI goes after the people. They're like it's some kind of an insurrection. It's crazy.
Sir. They called us domestic terrorists, President Trump,
for
speaking out at school board meetings.
Well, we'll change that on the first day, I promise you that.
When you look at Tim Walz, who is now Kamala Harris's running partner, he has made his state a sanctuary city, sir, which means that a sanctuary state, for children, that they can go there and have gender surgeries paid for by the government. And so I just ask you, there's been an explosion in the number of children who identify as transgender, and children are being taught that they were born in the wrong body. It's an incredibly abusive message to send. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you might be able to do as president.
Well, you can do everything. President has such power. It does. It has such power. For instance, you can close the border. You don't need a bill. You know, they keep saying, well, just give us a bill. It's just a. They had the worst bill I've ever seen. It was a disaster. And they wouldn't have signed it anyway because they do want open borders. They want to have open borders. They want to have all sorts of things that almost nobody in this room wants, who I think 85, 90% of the country doesn't want if they actually
I absolutely agree with you.
But the transgender thing is incredible. Think of it. Your kid goes to school and comes home a few days later with an operation. The school decides what's going to happen with your child. And, you know, many of these childs 15 years later say, what the hell happened? Who did this to me? They say, who did this to me?
We're going to fight to keep our girls safe, President Trump. We're going to fight to make sure that our girls have privacy and safety in their bathrooms, and that they have Kristi Noem, I think, said it best. She said, we will not allow mediocre men to beat extraordinary women.
Yeah. That's right. It's also very demeaning to women. I don't know how they get away with it. But the Olympics was the best thing that I've seen because you really see when these boxers came out, it was so ridiculous. And they just go through it like nothing. And why should women have to, swimming too, why should women have to compete? Now, it was sort of hard to get in. I don't know how these two people got in, but they got in. Because in some cases, you know, they weren't allowed in. So they have a crazy standard going on. But it's so demeaning to women. And women are working so hard to, like, make a team or to make a record. And these records that are being set now by people that transitioned will not be broken right. Maybe 1,000 years from now by a woman. I don't know. But they're not going to be broken by right. a woman. It's a very sad thing. And you know, Kamala is totally in favor. Now, she's gone away from everything. You know, she's called the greatest flip-flopper in history. She loves fracking now. She said, there will never be fracking. We will never frack. And everything that she said would do, she's now doing it. There's like 12 or 14 things. There's never been anything like this. And, you know, in one way, it makes you very dishonest because, you know, I could see somebody throughout history, people have gone into one or two areas where there's a difference. You know, you like something and then all of a sudden but almost every single thing. In fact, we're seriously thinking about sending her tomorrow a MAGA hat because she loves everything we're doing.
In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. When Vice President and I talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make your own healthcare decisions.
Bullshit? Bullshit. Bullshit.
The most anti-parent candidate that Kamala Harris could have chosen. He has signed 3 bills into law, letting kids go through gender transition without the consent or knowledge of parents. He absolutely is a big government candidate who thinks that the government knows better than you for your children. And let's not forget that snitch line. I know he was talking about the golden rule last night. He said it was mind your own damn business. He should take some of his own advice because during COVID, not only did he lock down schools and mask children, he encouraged neighbors to snitch on each other if they were taking their kids to the playground. Yeah, so Tiffany, the most anti-parent candidate.
跳咗出嚟添啊！我翻返去嗰個 playlist 度先啊。咁咧咁。
So let's talk a little bit about family, because we really feel at Moms for Liberty that family and parental rights are under attack in America. All of America got to meet your granddaughter Kai at the Republican National Convention. It's very obvious that you love being a father and a grandfather. So I'd love to know why you choose.
Just to bring you up to date, today it was learned that 818,000 jobs that they said were produced were not produced. They don't talk about.
大家睇下，又再睇下可以睇到啊！因為我唔係吹㗎，你睇下邊又係 unlist 咗㗎。我都唔知點解佢係咩，我呢啲 account 仔佢。
That yesterday it was revealed 2 days ago. It was revealed that Joe Biden and the family stole $27 million.
Bill O'Reilly 亦都有留言。
Just to bring
Just encapsulate it, Mr. Trump. She's a socialist. All right? That's what she is. You're a capitalist. Let the country decide.
just to bring you up to date.
Just encapsulate it.
Bill O'Reilly 就好清楚將呢個選舉其實分割得好清楚，而家根本就係由社會主義定係資本主義社會啊？咁要投邊個咧？你中意社會主義啊？咁你咪投賀錦麗，但係呢個社會主義就會將成個美國粉碎嘅。咁奇怪嘅，哇！真係亂晒龍喎，啲個 playlist。
We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, no, no. Other than day one, we're closing the border and we're drilling."
呢個咧就係講阿 Trump 點樣係一個 dictator。阿 Trump 佢即係有時阿 Trump 講嘢就係咁噶啦。佢話佢會be a dictator day one on day one 啊。咁我哋點樣扭曲阿 Trump 講嘅
Drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
So that sounds to me like you're going back to the policies when you were president. All right.
Exactly. If we don't get what we want, we love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, no, no. Other than day one, we're closing the border and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator."
So that sounds to me like you're going back to the policies when you were president. All right.
Exactly. If we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely. And I am proud, and I'll tell you what, I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck, because the people of this country don't want criminals and people that have lots of problems and drugs pouring into our country. So I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it. The last time you shut it down, it didn't work.
呢個關於 border 啦，我真係好多，睇下先呢個咧。
If Comrade Waltz and Comrade Harris win this November, the people cheering will be the pink-haired Marxists, the looters, the perverts, the flag burners, Hamas supporters, drug dealers, gun grabbers, and human traffickers. But with a Trump fans' victory, the cheers will come from the police officers, the firefighters, the Border Patrol agents, the steel workers, small business owners, parents, and hardworking citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. And that's what we're doing. We're getting record numbers in the Hispanic community, record numbers in so many different communities. Nobody's ever actually seen. You know, this is the greatest movement in the history of our country. You do know that.
又係 unlist 咗嘅。
She doesn't want to talk about him anymore. She says, "Let's not bring this guy in. Let's not bring him in." No, they were a team. He appointed her as border czar, and she did the worst job in the history of borders, I will tell you. Does anyone here feel richer under Kamala Harris than Crooked Joe, than you were during the Trump administration? Is anything less expensive under Kamala Harris and Crooked Joe? On my first day back in the Oval Office, I will sign an executive order directing every cabinet secretary and agency head to use every tool and authority at their disposal to defeat inflation and to bring consumer prices rapidly down. We'll do it very rapidly. By contrast, I'm going to keep the Affordable Care Act. Unless we can do something much better, we'll keep it. It stinks. It's not good. If we can do better, meaning less expensive and better health care for you, less expensive and better health care for you, then we'll do it.
We want America.
But we can get out there, reach
呢個又係睇下點樣講。
out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values.
佢好明顯，佢就話俾人知，佢就係激進噶啦。我擺到明係激進噶啦，我亦都唔怕你話我激進。
One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker.
好明顯佢哋係 woke 同埋極左主義者。OK， 咁你邊個仲會投佢咧？咁仲有咧就係佢哋好多時話 Trump 點樣係一個非常自私嘅一個人，佢唔會去關心別人。下一條片咧俾大家睇，佢係一個點對，即係我哋叫做 heartwarming 嘅 moment， 係唔係 stage 嘅，係突然之間去見到有呢樣嘢發生，去做咗嗰個動作出嚟。
I'm David Kim. California's leading newspapers are all warning about Prop 33. The San Francisco Chronicle says 33 is a recipe for disaster.
Great stuff. I don't know about it.
呢個咧喺佢一個僆仔嘅都係嘅 KOL 嘅一個訪問裏邊啦。咁喺佢個 Florida 嘅屋企 Lamawalo 嗰度就做呢個訪問嘅，咁同時間咧做直播嘅，咁都佢嗰個直播呢個後生仔叫做Kick.com， 佢做都過百萬啊！佢嗰個呢個直播，咁直播完啦，咁佢哋準備咧，因為佢有部車，即係開始嗰陣時話想送俾阿 Trump 嘅，不過後尾都唔可以送得。因為都同嗰個選舉嗰啲有關係啦，選舉規條有關係，所以咧就後尾都冇送咗俾阿 Trump， 結果係呢個後生仔個老豆攞咗嚟揸，係部 Cyber Truck， 好靚嘅 Cyber Truck。咁咧就完啦，佢哋諗住咧就準備行出去出邊，就去睇下嗰部車阿 Trump 都唔知佢準備送部 Cyber Truck 俾佢，佢都唔知啊。總之佢話有嘢送俾阿 Trump 咁啊 ，OK 喺放咗喺出邊咁啊，要出去睇咁樣啦。
So the next trip is outside.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Since day one.
Really, day one. Yes. You love her.
She's your biggest fan.
She's doing good. She's
Please,
a young woman.
please get a picture with her. She's
Yes. Can I do that?
Yeah, of course.
Can I take? Come on, let's
take a
get.
picture.
I'll take it. I got you guys.
You stay right there. We're gonna take a good one.
I'll take a great one.
Thank you so much.
I got some good ones.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Right?
no, she does.
I'll bet she does. She's probably tougher than I am. Have a good time, everybody. See you tonight.
呢個就係阿 Trump 佢對佢嘅支持者佢見到一個坐住輪椅嚟探佢啊，睇佢做節目直播啊，佢就唔會去即係冇理佢走咗去咁樣嗰種咁其實都仲有好多噶，睇下我搵唔搵到，我都剪咗呢啲 heartwarming moment 咧，我都剪咗好多出嚟，就放咗上去。但係出唔出到有冇出咧，我就唔係好 sure 啦。咁就睇下先，多到咧有時我自己都唔知道我自己剪咗啲乜啦。
We want Americans to be able to speak their own mind in their own country, and sometimes that means you've got to take on those monopolies. President Trump already did it, and I think he'll do it again if we give him another chance.
It just stands out as interesting to me because you courted so much money effectively for the campaign from Silicon Valley and from so many of these
Not from
tech
Google,
guys.
not from Google and Facebook, Margaret.
呢個又係嗰啲左媒嘅主持人嚟嘅，就想挑剔下。
I think there's a big difference between big tech and little tech, right? A lot of these companies are upstarts. They're trying to build a cool product. They're trying to take on the Googles and Facebooks of the world. Google and Facebook are not giving me a whole lot of money because they don't like me, because I believe that Americans ought to be able to speak their own mind in their own country. And I think these companies are too big. We ought to take the Teddy Roosevelt approach to some of them, break them up, don't let them control what people are allowed to say. So yes, the big tech companies don't like me. The little tech companies, people I think who are trying to do something important to take on those big tech incumbents, yeah, a lot of them do support me, and I'm of course proud to have their support because we agree on a lot of big issues.
California, 169 delegates.
California represents nearly 5.4 million registered Republicans, more than any other state in the nation. From its pristine beaches to its soaring mountains, from expansive deserts to the redwood forests, the Golden State is responsible for securing today's GOP House majority. It will be the state responsible for returning a House majority to Washington this November so that President Trump has a partner in Congress to support his common sense agenda. With the largest delegation in the nation, Madam Secretary, the great state of California proudly casts all of its 169 votes for President Donald Trump.
好，呢個要解釋一下啦。169係咩咧？169咧就係個委員啊。我哋咧加州共和黨入邊嘅委員係有169位嘅，咁喺唔同 county 入邊嘅，即係證明我哋有169個 county 嘅。咁咧就唔係assembly 嘅，我哋唔係用 county， 我用 assembly 嘅。我哋160個 assembly 嘅。咁咧我咧就係屬於49區嘅後備，49區 assembly 嘅後備咁樣啦。咁每個 assembly 就有五個委員嘅，我哋呢啲5個委員全部都係要經過民選嘅，唔係我哋自己為威咧就可以做到委員嘅。我做後備委員咧就係正選個委員，如果出席唔到投票咧，佢就會 call 我，喂，你過嚟頂一頂啊，我出席唔到呢個投票，但係呢個投票又好緊要，你幫我出嚟。咁呢個就係後備委員嘅呢個責任啦。咁呢樣嘢咧就係我哋共和黨入邊初選嘅制度就係咁。民主黨嘅初選制度係同我哋共和黨嘅初選制度係有啲唔同嘅。咁嗰啲人數、佢啲票數啊，點樣分配法，佢哋有佢哋嘅方法。我唔知，因為我唔係民主黨，我係共和黨。咁咧，而民主黨今次點解咁多民主黨走去退出民主黨，就係因為佢哋連呢個投票機會都冇啊嘛，佢哋唔想投俾何錦麗，冇呢個 chance， 佢哋想投俾嗰陣時因為Robert Kennedy Jr. 啦，甘迺迪仲係民主黨嗰陣時，即係好早嘅講緊以前，佢未出嚟撐 Trump 之前，咁樣佢就係因為民主黨入邊都唔會出嚟走去撐佢啊嘛，咁反而拱咗個賀錦麗上嚟，咁所以民主黨入邊咧，你會見到好多退出咗做民主黨嚟話俾佢知，如果但係咁，你民主黨都可以投共和黨唔係你退咗民主黨，你都繼續可以投民主黨喎，呢個先都係一個問題嚟喎。雖然喺 registration 你見到咁樣，但係所以成個都唔好太老定，所以到今日為止我都繼續想喺度繼續去推票，想話俾人知。可能呢個搞到慢咗呢個 app，OK， 繼續去 推票。如果仲未能夠肯定到你要投 Trump 嘅話，希望或者你知道有啲朋友仲未能夠肯定去投 Trump，就麻煩你 share 呢條片啊，希望幫到佢啦啊！因為有時啲嘢啊，我能做到嘅我都做啦。啊，呢個又好搞笑呢個。
You know, if you can't talk about a bad election, you really don't have a democracy.
As a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse.
But the issue has been brought back to the states now, and like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother.
呢個非常緊要啦，呢個睇下先，因為左媒咧喺度。左媒喺度抹黑緊，等我 share 咗去Facebook 先。左媒咧就喺度抹黑，講墮胎呢樣嘢，講阿 Trump 係即係冇人性啊，連啲強姦嗰啲咧，佢都照去唔俾佢墮胎。阿 Trump 其實講過好多次噶啦，跟住我再俾大家睇一睇呢個墮胎問題啊。
But the issue has been brought back to the states now, and like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly. I think that that's a very important thing. I think when you have to follow your heart. But when you don't believe in the exceptions, I think it's much tougher. It's a much tougher issue. But about 82% of Republicans do believe in exceptions. I think and a lot of them are changing their mind and coming even further. I think that abortion has become much less of an issue. I think it's actually going to be a very small issue. What I've done is I've done what every Democrat and every Republican wanted to have done, and we brought that issue back to the states, and now the states are voting on it.
The order is, the directive is, and I'm not making it up, I've got the directive in a file somewhere. It says, search for a way to charge a misdemeanor or diversion so that they can avoid deportation. The order is, the directive is, and I'm not.
But the issue has been brought back to the states now.
As a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that, too, has gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse.
But the issue has been brought back to the states now, and like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly. I think that that's a very important thing. I think when you have to follow your heart. But when you don't believe in the exceptions, I think it's much tougher. It's a much tougher issue. but about 82% of Republicans do believe in exceptions. I think and a lot of them are changing their mind and coming even further. I think that abortion has become much less of an issue. It's I think it's actually going to be a very small issue. What I've done is I've done what every Democrat and every Republican wanted to have done, and we brought that issue back to the states. And now the states are voting on it.
The order is, the directive is, and I'm not.
But the issue has been brought back to the states now, and
唔好意思啊，啲掣啊，跟住咧，佢哋而家想話俾啲女性知，話 Trump 係嗰個 woman's right， 你個女人係冇權冇呢個權去墮胎埋即係嗰個賣 body 賣 choice 呢樣嘢咧，又係咁但係問題就係阿 Trump 講就係將嗰個責任翻去每個州Roe v. Wade 就唔係反墮胎 ，Roe v. Wade 只係將個墮胎喺 federal level 喺聯邦層面去處理，而家唔係，而家阿 Trump 就話，即係其實都唔係佢話事嘅，係法官話事嘅，嗰9個法官話事，咁嗰9個法官係因為有幾個係阿 Trump 委任嘅，咁所以咧佢哋就入阿 Trump 數啦。咁阿 Trump 亦都唔介意攞呢啲 credit 啦，因為咁佢係唔贊成 Roe v. Wade 咁，佢自己都係嘛，咁佢覺得由翻每個州獨立，每個人去決定，呢個就係最民主嘅方法，你每個州去決定，自己去決定，但係左派新聞就肯定唔會咁樣報，而佢哋亦都會扭曲阿 Trump 呢個，所以我播2次。亦都 share 咗去 Facebook， 希望咧希望朋友咧係可以幫手 share 出去，俾人哋知道左媒嘅謊言係幾咁不堪希望大家幫手啦因為你睇完之後，你知道係冇用嘅，你知道係改變唔到呢個世界嘅，你知道嘅話，呢個世界聽日或者過咗下一年10年之後，都係一樣咁坎坷嘅，因為你得一個人知。呢行動咧就好代表你個行動，係好代表咗你係咩諗法噶啦。睇完冇用嘅啫，咁睇下先，所以我咧每次睇完啲嘢咧，我都會做片，做一段短又好，有啲長有啲短啦，就希望咧推出嚟，就俾多啲人可以睇到。咁點解我唔放喺 Rumble？ 好多人都話，點解唔放 Rumble 嘅原因 ，Rumble 已經係右邊嘅睇啦嘛，右邊嘅人都知道呢啲嘢，我諗辦法點樣俾啲中間嗰啲人去知道個真相，就唔係俾主流傳媒去炮轟中間選民啊嘛，咁其實都好微噶，因為 YouTube 我頭先有 show 啦，好將好多我嘅片去 unlist 咗，唔係放 public 噶 ，unlist 咗佢噶。咁 unlist 嘅意思就係你有條 link 先睇到，你冇 link 係睇唔到嘅。public 就推嘅嘛，會推，所以點解我啲片有時奇怪，得幾個人睇 single digit， 因為打到我即係嗰個意志係好消沉啊！但係問題就係我而家冇辦法，因為我哋下一代喺呢個選舉入邊，如果我消沉落去噶嘛其實係噶，我真係好消沉噶，啲人唔信，我個樣唔似咋，因為我不斷繼續去做嘢，去整啲嘢出嚟。去宣傳，想話俾人知繼續去做咯，唯有就係做嘢能夠可以去改變呢個社會啊！睇嘢係改變唔到社會嘅，睇到我睇100本書、1000本書都改變唔到呢個社會嘅。我唯有將我睇完嘅100本書轉發翻出嚟，消化完發翻出嚟，咁啲人 只有啲人先會再多啲嘅資訊嘅啫。咁啊，大家睇下呢個，呢個就係民主黨。
I hear people all the
5
time,
分鐘。
people you may not
呢個
expect,
呢
say
個呢個等大家去睇。呢個就係咧我哋加州嘅以前嘅民主黨 Senate 參議員，加州參議員，民主黨參議員，佢已經冇做啦。佢叫 Gloria Romero， 咁佢咧亦都退出咗民主黨。佢因為佢醒咧，佢見到啊，哇，原來呢個民主黨係咁不堪嘅，所以佢亦都退咗黨啊。
A gag order, also known as a protective order.
哦，呢個就係我自己剪啲，我自己咧亦都用咗另外一個方法剪咗啲片去解釋一啲 terms 啊。咩係 gag order？ 咁呢條片咧就係講乜嘢係叫做 gag order？ 點解個法官唔俾阿 Trump 去個 gag order？ 咁 gag 入邊咧又解釋到好一個好奇怪嘅現象嚟嘅。其實因為咧gag order 係只會放喺 prosecution 嗰邊嘅，就唔會放喺 defendant 嗰邊嘅。咁而今次個法官就將個 gag order 放咗喺 defendant 嗰邊啊，所以咧呢個係非常扭曲嘅，紐約呢個唔係，所以佢根本呢個34個嗰個罪咧，34項控罪咧，根本全部如果一推上去最高法院，全部取消寫包單，因為成個程序都錯晒，成個程序根本就不公義啊！咁美國還有呢樣好嘢啊嘛，咁佢哋係咪真係可以拱到阿川普咁啊？拱唔到啊，因為係呢個佢根本就知道係拱唔到阿川普去坐監啊，但係佢就要做呢樣嘢，就唔俾阿川普去參選啊，或者想一個臭名俾佢，唔俾佢贏啊！啲人如果即係要解釋呢樣嘢，成個法律程序啊，要解釋又係要花好多時間。有時啲人講，阿 Trump 係罪犯，咁有時我哋咧就係費事去解釋，係罪犯因為嗰啲人咧，如果佢認為阿 Trump 係罪犯的話，嗰種人即係講都嘥氣咯，唔識嘢唔睇嘢，唔識嘢，無知要我同佢解釋完都完咗選舉啦，點解釋啊，大佬？
I wrote Hillbilly Elegy because I wanted to give people a sense of what it was like.
呢條片咧就係 J.D. Vance 佢嗰陣時參選做眾議員嘅唔係參議員嘅時候嘅一個訪問嚟嘅。咁我覺得係好值得睇佢呢個人究竟係點咯。
I wrote Hillbilly Elegy because I wanted to give people a sense of what it was like to live in a community like mine. I didn't think a whole lot of stories were told about white working class Americans. I didn't think a lot of stories were told about people who were struggling with some of the problems we were struggling with, joblessness, drug addiction, and so forth. And I thought that I could tell a story that would make people understand my family a little bit better, and maybe in the process, understand the struggles of a lot of families in Middletown, the state of Ohio more broadly.
No, I thought your mama was. Gonna be all right. Be happy. I know I could have done better, but you got to decide you want to be somebody or not.
I've been doing real good. I just had a down month.
I got an interview tomorrow, Mom. Otherwise,
Oh, you know me. I always land on my feet.
Daddy, don't look at that. Come on. Come on. Don't you look at you. Look at me. You look at me.
you let her get away with this every time.
I told you that I would do better.
You always say that. You're lying.
I always try.
You got to think about these kids.
What do you think I've been thinking about since I was 18 years old, huh? Never had a life where I wasn't thinking about the kids.
Do you actually want to be dead, Mom? Or are you just too lazy to try?
Oh, I tried.
Plenty. You've always got a reason. It's always someone else's fault. Some point, you're going to have to take responsibility, or someone else is going to have to step in.
Who? Huh? Who? You?
Hasta la vista, baby.
How many times have you seen this?
Oh, about 100. Everyone in this world is one of three kinds. Good Terminator, a bad Terminator, and neutral.
You're a good Terminator.
Well, I wasn't always. I had to learn. You could too.
I love you. I promise that I'm going to do better.
Cutie, you got a right to your own life.
Don't make us your excuse, JD.
Family's the only thing that means a goddamn. You'll learn it.
I am from Ohio. I grew up in this state. I left to join the Marine Corps, and I came back to build a business and to raise a family because we wanted to raise our family in a place that's beautiful, that has great people, and that has great values. And this is my home. I love this place, and I care about it.
These are his people. This is where he's from. These are the people who carried him through difficult times in life. And he really believes, and I believe that if he can get himself into a position to make a difference for them, he will.
I'm running for U.S. Senate because the people that I grew up around, the people across the state of Ohio who are trying to achieve the American dream, they actually need somebody to fight for them. Right now in Ohio, people who are working hard, they're playing by the rules, they're trying to get ahead, they're trying to make a better life for their children. The leaders of this country think they're stupid, they think they're bigoted, they judge their viewpoints, they're shipping their jobs overseas. No one is fighting for working and middle-class Ohioans who are just trying to build a good life for themselves. I want to be the person who's fighting for them. We are a good country with good people, and when we support each other, we actually can accomplish great things.
During cross-examination, Donald Trump's former
I wrote Hillbilly Elegy because I wanted to give people a sense of what it was like to live in a community like mine.
唔知係咪限時嘅咧？Hello，而家可能用咗第二個咪，又話可以有3個鐘頭呢啲完全冇。咁咧就而家就應該用緊我耳仔呢個啦。咁我唔中意用呢個咧，因為啲聲出嚟好刷。咁我自己聽翻下睇係咪真係好刷先。好似 OK 啦，聽唔聽到？聽唔聽到？好似就咁繼續啦。咁呢個 J.D. Vance 一個古仔，咁其實好值得大家去睇嘅，非常勵志。我睇下先啊。呢個有個長啲嘅，我有啲長嘅轉咗短片，咁就我睇下仲阿 Trump 仲有一啲投胎 order J.D. Vance 個古仔，咁大家睇下先。我想揾翻，仲有一個就係佢着對晒呢首歌俾大家聽。
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do. The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during.
咁快跳咗過去，Joe Biden 啦，唔使講佢啦已經。但係講翻呢個睇埋呢個啦，我都想。
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And he deserves it. He deserves it. For the past 16 months, Bobby has run an extraordinary campaign for President of the United States. I know, because he also went after me a couple of times. I didn't like it. And I mean this sincerely. Had he been allowed to enter the Democrat primary, he would have easily beaten Joe Biden, but they wouldn't let him in. They put up rules. I've never seen rules like you had to have 65% of the vote in order to run, you know, little things like that. His candidacy has inspired millions and millions of Americans, raised critical issues that have been too long ignored in this country, and brought together people from across the political spectrum in a positive campaign grounded in the American values of his father, Robert Kennedy, a great man, and his uncle, President John F. Kennedy. And I know that they are looking down right now, and they are very, very proud of Bobby. I'm proud of Bobby, you want to know the truth. And I don't think I've ever introduced anyone that got applause like he just got. I must tell you, I don't think it's true. I don't think I've ever introduced anybody that got applause like that. Amazing. It's true. Amazing. Soon after I can't even believe I have to say this, nearly assassinated in Pennsylvania last month, Bobby called me to express his best wishes. He knows firsthand the risks incurred by leaders who stand up to the corrupt political establishment. When you stand up, you bring on some trouble for yourself, but you have to do what's right. You have to do what's right for the country. I will tell you, we are both in this to do what's right for the country. That's one thing I can tell you. He lost his father and uncle in service to our country, and Bobby himself was subject to repeated threats to his safety during the course of his campaign while being denied protection by the Harris-Biden administration. And this is a tribute in honor of Bobby. I am announcing tonight that upon my election, I will establish a new independent presidential commission on assassination attempts. And they will be tasked with releasing all of the remaining documents pertaining to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. And they will also conduct a rigorous review of the attack last month. But I tell you, I have never had more people ask me, please, sir, release the documents on the Kennedy assassination. And we're going to do that.
呢個真係點解咁多人唔想阿侵當選總統嘅原因。
And I also want to salute Bobby's decades of work as an advocate for the health of our families and our children. Nobody's done more. Millions and millions of Americans who want clean air, clean water, and a healthy nation have concerns about toxins in our environment and pesticides in our food. That's why today I'm repeating my pledge to establish a panel of top experts working with Bobby to investigate what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic health problems and childhood diseases. including autoimmune disorders, autism, obesity, infertility, and many more. We want every child in America to grow up and to live a long and healthy life. So I just want to ask Bobby to speak for a little while. I'll stand aside. I'm going to stand aside. But I can only tell you, I've known him a long time. We've been a little bit on the opposite side of the equation, but I will say this, he is a brilliant, I still think of him as young. He's not that young. I always call him young, but he's not that young. But he is a phenomenal person, a phenomenal man who loves the people of this country as much as anybody can love the people of this country. So, Bobby, please say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you. A few hours after the assassination attempt at Butler, I got a call from a safe food advocate named Kelly Means, who's been fighting for many years to try to end the corruption at CDC and FDA and USDA. And these institutions, these regulatory agencies, are actually run by the big food processing companies, the big ag and the chemical companies that they're supposed to regulate. And he said to me that he'd been advising me for many years and on my campaign. And he told me that night that he was also advising President Trump. And he asked if I would talk to President Trump. And I said, of course. And about a few minutes later, I got a call from the president. And we talked. We had a very good talk. And then he invited me to come see him the next day. And I went to Minneapolis and saw him. We met again a couple of weeks later in Florida. And we talked about, not about the things that separate us, because we don't agree on everything, but on the values and the issues that bind us together. And one of the issues that he talked about was having safe food and ending the chronic disease epidemic. Our children are now the unhealthiest, sickest children in the world. Don't you want healthy children? And don't you want the chemicals out of our food? And don't you want the regulatory agencies to be free from corporate corruption? And that's what President Trump told me that he wanted. He also told me that he wanted to end the grip of the neocons on U.S. foreign policy. He said he didn't want any more $200 billion wars in Ukraine, that we could use that money back here in the United States. And the best way to build a safe America is to rebuild our industrial base and rebuild the middle class in this country. And don't you want a president who's going to get us out of the wars and who's going to rebuild the middle class in this country? And he told me that he wanted to end the censorship, because the whole basis of American democracy is the free flow of information. And we know that a government that can silence its opponents has license for any kind of atrocity. And can you think of any time that you can look back in history and say that the people who were censoring were the good guys? They're always the bad guys, because it's always the first step down that slippery slope to totalitarianism. And don't you want a president who's going to protect America's freedoms? And who is going to protect us against totalitarianism? And I want to ask you again, don't you want a safe environment for your children? Don't you want to know that the food that you're feeding them is not filled with chemicals that are going to give them cancer and chronic disease? And don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again? Thank you all very, very much, and God bless you, and God bless America.
跳咗出嚟，咁咧整多條多到真係好多啊！我真係整咗好多片。就而家想揾咧佢嗰個想我揾翻我嗰陣時，我有條係 Elon Musk 嘅，呢個睇埋呢個收工。
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, gothic MAGA. Well, the energy in this room is incredible. What a great group of people.
All right, I've only got one question for you, and then I'm getting out of here because this is your stage. But we set up Doge.
Yes.
How much do you think we can rip out of this wasted $6.5 trillion Harris-Biden budget?
Well, I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
Yeah!
Yes.
$2 trillion.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're being taxed. You're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
Yes. EOVE.
We're going to get the government off your back and out of your pocketbook. And America's just not just going to be great. America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing! Now, you guys are awesome. Honestly, this is like... Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of positive energy that America is all about. Yeah. USA, 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 USA. Ah! Yes. Now, I have something I want to ask you to do, though, because obviously we're somewhat preaching to the converted in this stadium, but there's a lot of people out there who need to vote for President Trump. Okay, so this is a real battle. This is a real election battle. So you need to get friends and family to vote. Make sure they vote early. This is important. We're going to be putting up a scorecard, okay? An early vote scorecard, state by state, county by county. What is the scorecard? Vote early. Vote now. Yeah.
聽日最後一日啦，而家所以咧就祝你啲朋友、親戚朋友走去投 Trump 再講一次啦，好多人咧見到個水蛇春咁長嘅表咧就驚咗。你唔投其他嘅都唔緊要，一定要投 Trump 唔係考試，唔係要條條都要答㗎。唔識唔答冇所謂嘅，冇肥佬呢樣嘢。但係如果阿 Trump 唔贏咧，就我哋全部一齊仆街，就係咁簡單。咁剩翻聽日時間啫。
Make the margin of victory so big that you know what can happen. Massive, overwhelming sweep of every swing state, and even some of the states that people don't think are swing states. Massive, crushing victory. Get everyone, friends, family, people on the street. Put the signs up, put the hat on. Let's go.
Let's go.
And with that, it is my honor to introduce the First Lady, Melania Trump.
其實仲有好多，咁都去咗2粒鐘啦。再講一次，唔知道有啲，因為嗰個 ballot 3頁5版嘢嘅，你唔係全部都識晒要投邊個，唔識投嘅留空佢唔會做廢票㗎，留空咗就留空咗 ，blank 咗由佢。但係 Trump 嗰度你就一定要填咗，聽日唯一你聽日去投票，跟住去到投票站嗰度咧，你去個電腦嗰度，佢嗰個熒光幕，佢個熒光幕上邊你就可以咧，即係佢一路會過噶嘛。跟住你譬如話你望到啲人你唔識嘅，右下角有個 skip 掣嘅，咁咪 skip 咗佢咯。有一樣嘢就係咧，我頭先去投咧，阿 Trump 咧就喺第一嘅。我唔知道你哋去投咧，阿 Trump 係咪喺第一？我唔喺最頂。如果喺最頂，因為佢嗰個熒光幕咧，好似得4個候選人嘅如果多個咧，你就要再下邊有個掣撳 more， 咁咧你要再撳多，即係佢先可以 show 到佢出嚟。咁好彩我見到嘅咧就係阿 Trump 係第一，都唔使 scroll 唔使撳 more 啦。咁但係萬一你要即係話咧，你見到咁你就撳 more。咁呢個就係你去完撳完之後你嗰啲都唔識嘅，是但啦 skip 咁啦咁都冇所謂嘅。但係 Trump 就一定要，其實 Trump 有3個人，其實有3個人一定要記住個名就係 Steve Garvey、Nathan Hartman 同埋 Donald Trump 呢幾個係 federal 㗎啦。 喺地區嘅嗱，即係太多人名喺地區嘅嚇，其餘嗰啲你咪投晒共和黨就得㗎。我哋加州嘅咧，地區加州嗰啲你就淨係投晒共和黨，就話冇走雞㗎啦。跟住第啲咩學區啊，嗰啲 click 啦嗰啲啊，咁你又唔識咁就算啦，可以 skip 咗佢啊。法案其實法案就好易記啫，全部都 no 除咗36啊，咁啊易記啊嘛，最緊要啊易記，淨係36 yes， 其餘 no 就好簡單嘅啫，即係基本嚟講得4樣嘢要記，得5樣嘢要記，一個 Donald Trump。第二個 Steve Garvey， 第三個 Nathan Hartman， 第四個啲提案淨係36 yes， 其餘 no， 跟住第5個全部地區嘅只投共和黨，不投民主黨，只投共和黨，不投民主黨，咁就搞掂啦。5樣嘢記住咁希望大家最後聽日我哋嘅國家嘅命運就喺晒聽日你哋嘅手上我就投咗啦 ，OK？ 咁多謝大家收睇啦，記得撳 subscribe 撳鐘仔，咁咧有咩我一有新片出嘅時候，你知道我咧就其實有好多新片，即係我都我都好密嘅，我都好勤力嘅，所以你成日都會收到啲 notification 噶啦。咁你咧就如果你嗰陣時冇第啲嘢做緊啦，你就可以撳一撳個 like 咁就走咗去，咁我都冇所謂嘅。如果你話有啲時間喎，你睇一睇留個言，好似 Cyrus 咁留個言，跟住走咗去噶啦咁咧都唔緊要噶，因為留個都係一個幫助，對我嚟講都係一個幫助，咁幫助我嗰個流量嘅，咁多啲人識我呢個channel 咁樣啦咁希望大家繼續幫手下次再見，拜拜。